Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot of New Orleans Saints and, of course, the draft. The draft starts in just about an hour from now, and, of course, we'll break it down for you. Got two great guests for you as well. Joining us on the program tonight is John Hendricks. He is the managing editor and lead writer for WhoDatDish.com, which is part of the Fanside Network, and my sidekick on a Friday. It's contributed to my program each and every Friday Inside New Orleans. Mike Fazan joins us on the program from 9:90 a.m. WGSO. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. Certainly appreciate you guys coming down on a very busy night. We always start off talking a little bit about, let folks know a little bit about what's going on. And John, let's start with you. And I'll tell you what, I happened to stumble upon your site. Fansite is a very, very good site for folks that really enjoy sports. And got the application on the app on my phone, and lo and behold, Who Dat Dish is part of that. And I want to tell you right now, you guys are doing a phenomenal job covering the New Orleans Saints, and of course that site covers everything. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do, obviously Fanside plays a lot of part of what we do, and it's affiliated with Sports Illustrated, and what our goal is to cover New Orleans Saints and anything related to the Saints. And so we cover anything from breaking news to opinion and blogs. I mean, it's just a whole vast array of everything, you name it. And we try to bring original content. I have a lot of local writers and talent that are here, but I've got writers as far as Italy, that are really gung-ho on the New Orleans Saints, and so it's really awesome and just a great time to write about things that you love.
No, I'll tell you what, and I would recommend to anyone that's out there that enjoys just sports in general or the New Orleans Saints, get it on your smartphone or your tablet. Look for for Who Dat Dish or the Fanside site, and believe me, you'll get constant updates on what's going on. Who Dat Dish? Where does that come from? It's kind of a weird type of a name for a website. But so where's the dish part? I got the Who Dat. Where's the dish?
Dish is all your information that you get from the site. Right. I mean, so it's everything associated with it. But yeah, obviously the Who Dat, and we hadn't been trademarked, copyright infringement yet, anything with that problem set. Right. But the dish part all comes from all the feeds and all the material that we bring to our fans.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd highly recommend it.
The dish means the scoop,
Yeah, that's right. You got the dish, got the scoop. That's right, Mike. Mike Fazan is with us. Of course, this is Mike's second time on the program. Mike has a great blog. He'll tell you a little bit about it. Of course, he joins me each and every Friday on Inside New Orleans between 11 and 12, and we talk sports, break it down for you. Mike, tell folks a little bit about your blog.
That's called Fazan on Football. Usually related to football, mostly Saints, LSU, Tulane, local stuff, but I will go into college baseball, NBA, college basketball, whatever goes through that hollow space up there between my ears, it'll come out.
Well, make sure you guys check Mike out with us each and every Friday here on Inside New Orleans, the radio show, and he's with me between 11 and noon. Saints on the clock right now with the 27th pick. They will pick have the 58th pick in the second round. In the third round, the 91st pick. In the fourth round, the 126th pick. In the fifth round, the 167th pick. And also the 169th pick, that pick coming from Philadelphia in the Darren Sproles deal. And they'll finish it off in round 6 with the 202nd pick if they stay put. And guys, let's start off with, again, and John, we'll start with you. The strength of this draft, overall, where do you think the strength is?
Well, personally, I think it's in the wide receiver class. I mean, you guys look at it that there's 19 early entrants that came out of the draft this year. And a lot of juniors that came out, and it's just so many that go in there. So you've got your top tier ones like Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins, Marquise Lees, Odell Beckham Jr., all those guys that have been paired. And then you got all the other ones that could go on draft day too, like your Jarvis Landry, you got Paul Richardson, a couple other players like that. But I mean, that's where I automatically think that the biggest depth is. And if not that, it's got to be your defensive lineman.
Mike, what can you add to that? Is it corner? Is it D-line?
Cornerback, wide receiver is obviously the deepest position in the draft. Cornerback, defensive line, quarterback. There's some quarterbacks out there that a lot of teams are looking at in the first couple of rounds. It's just the deepest draft that I can remember, Eric. I guess with all the juniors coming in, with new CBA signed a couple years
98
ago.
98 juniors this year coming in.
It's just an influx of juniors which made this draft, rise as far as talent's concerned. And I mean, you talk about wide receiver. I mean, he mentioned a bunch of them. You could get a wide receiver in a free agency that maybe next year or last year might have got drafted. Mm-hmm. That's how deep it is.
No, and again, that's really, for the Saints, they're in a great position. When you look at what they need, especially what they've been able to do in the offseason, and we'll get to that eventually in this show, they need a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. They need a playmaking wide receiver. They can use a guy like an Odell Beckham. We'll get to him in a little while, or maybe even a guy like a Jarvis Landry. You want to throw two different types of receivers out there. The cornerback position, even with bringing in Champ Bailey, maybe he's got 2 years left on those wheels if we're lucky. They're going to have to look corner. At this point, even with a Corey White and a Patrick Robinson who's in the last year of his deal, and then of course offensive line. They've got to get to a point where they can upgrade. Obviously, the offensive line. They've got to get some depth, some youth. They got some pretty expensive guards that are aging.
Absolutely, and then some of the things that glare for me, I automatically look at quarterback first. Is the first part that I'm looking at for it. But like you mentioned, Grubbs is a candidate. His contract ends at 2015, so they're going to have to start looking for those players that are going to end up replacing, the Streiff, the Grubbs, eventually Jari Evans, hopefully never, but, that time is coming. But that's where I'm looking. You hit it on the head. That Champ Bailey's got that 2 years that's coming. And then we can only hope that it helps evolve all the talent that's all in the Saints right now. So,
Mike? As far as the needs on the team, can you add anything to that?
Well, number one is wide receiver, playmaking wide receiver. I mean, they're getting old in that position. I don't know that there's going to be the guy that they need at 27 of value in wide receiver. I think they're going to get gobbled up quick. And it depends on what happens if teams start chasing the quarterbacks. Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans figure to be gone early. Odell Beckham is skyrocketing up the draft boards all across the league. That's the name that you've been hearing a lot of in the last couple of days. He's shooting up there. You got Brandon Cooks, Marquise Lee. I think there's going to be a run on them early because everybody wants to get that playmaker. So at 27, I'm thinking the Saints, the value is not going to be there at wide receiver. I think you can get much better value in the second round at wide receiver. Guys like Dante Moncrief, who I have the Saints picking in the second round of my mock draft. The kid from Matthews from Vandy, kids like that. So I'm looking. You go to your next thing, is there a corner? Maybe because there's a run on wide receivers, maybe a corner falls to you. Jason Verrett I've been hearing, or Fuller from Virginia Tech. I prefer somebody with a little more size, but we'll see. I think offensive line interior is a glaring need. I mean, Drew Brees was getting crushed last season. I mean, fans were screaming, what's happening with the offensive line? He's not getting any time, up the middle. So I think interior offensive line's a big time need.
Now, in your mock draft, you went with an offensive lineman first. And who did you go with?
I went pure value at 27. He's Xavier Suolito. He's the offensive guard from UCLA, 6'5", about 315, 310. A mauler. He knows how to use his body, get to the second level quick. He can pull. He's got speed enough to get outside. I went with him just basic value. Now, in my mock draft, I said no trades because then you got to start looking for people you want to trade with. So, to me, the value is Xavier Suolito.
John, how about you've done a lot of mock drafts, been following obviously that on the site. in your final mock draft, what did you settle on?
Last one I'd done Bradley Roby from Ohio State, and cornerback. And I mean, that's the way I think about that with the cornerback is you're looking at Champ Bailey and Keenan Lewis. You're looking at those two guys in the back, and you got Jarris Byrd, and then obviously have Vaccaro. So you're going to have to throw on somebody. So when you introduce that nickel corner, somebody like a Roby who can jump in there and just kind of disrupt a lot of things, I mean, it's a kind of a situation you look at like the Seahawks, who have those tremendous talent in their secondary, and for them to bring on like a Roby or a Verrett or Fuller, I think that's kind of where they're going. And plus it pushes Patrick Robinson, Corey White a little bit, you know, just to kind of help get their game up, I guess, if you will.
504-866-3200 is the phone number. This is a live show here on WLAE TV. You're welcome to call in and either give your comments on what you think the Saints may do tonight, maybe who's in your bullpen, and of course you have some questions for our guest on some of the prospects that are out there as well. John Hendricks of WhoThatDish.com, and of course Mike Vazan of 990 AM WGSO are our guest tonight. Guys, you mentioned it, Mike. Odell Beckham is probably the hottest prospect in the draft right now.
Everybody's bored right now.
I heard today that the Bills have an interest in him in 9. I talked about it on my radio show today. To me, the first-round pick, especially with this team, and really across the league, we're in a situation now where with a 4-year window that you have to have these guys on your roster, in a lot of cases, these guys have got to play right away. They've got to make an impact. I don't think the days of you sitting a guy and letting him kind of learn the system and then bring him along slowly, it works in today's NFL. Also, it's tough if you're only going to get a guy that's going to play 30, 40% of the time in sub packages. That's a tough deal as well. With that said, there's a lot of talk that maybe Odell Beckham will go early, but maybe, just maybe, he might be there at 17. If he's there at 17, I want to tell you right now, Beckham brings so much to the table for this team. Great returner, punt and kickoff. He solves that problem for them immediately. He is that Bush Sproles clone. He's that playmaker that again can dictate to the defense how they're going to play. And he's also obviously a speed receiver and a guy that can stretch the defense. Mike, do you think that the Saints will be in a position that they can move up and maybe take an Odell Beckham, or is that a pipe dream? You notice I did.
But who's that set?
Well, the purple and gold today.
And I'm liking the colors, man.
Because I'm hoping that they go with Odell Beckham Jr.
Well, listen, who's at 17? Is it Miami or the Jets?
It's Baltimore, actually.
Oh, Baltimore.
Right.
Maybe they can find a Baltimore that'd be willing to make a deal.
The Jets are at 18. He won't get past the Jets.
He won't get past the Jets. I love him. I love Odell Beckham Jr. Now, I don't see the Darren Sproles. I see more of a Percy Harvin type because he's not a running back. Darren Sproles, get the ball and get your first down.
But you can do those
3.
wide receiver screens with him.
But you can do the bubble screens and this and that. No, I'm not downgrading him. I'm just saying I think he's more of a Percy Harvin type. Mm-hmm. But shit, the Saints can pull that deal. I'm all for it. I think though, in my scenario, I would have maybe drafted out of the first round, picked up an early second, because somebody early in the second round didn't get that quarterback they wanted or that wide receiver they wanted, and maybe they want to jump back in. Then you got you got an early pick and a later pick in the second round, and then you can really do some business. But if they want to move up and grab Odell Beckham Jr. with 17, I'm all for it. Give up I guess a 2 or 1 next year or something or whatever.
I'm not sure what the cost would be.
They'd have to give up number 1. Right. Next year's number 1 plus 1 of this year's picks.
Right. But it's only 10 spots, and that's the key. I mean, moving up 10, anything outside of 10, right? Anything outside of 10 is going to really cost you a king's ransom. Yeah. 10 is palatable if he's there. Now, again, rumors today, you can't believe everything you're hearing because, again, it is the season of misinformation. But if the Bills are truly interested at 9, that is too expensive of a move. I do like your scenario of moving back. We'll get into that in a moment. Yeah. John, what's your thoughts about, do the Saints have a shot at Odell Beckham Jr.? What do you think it'll cost? Where do you think he'll go?
I mean, think about it. If Odell Beckham, like I said, he's not going to last that long. I mean, and even so, you got other teams behind like Cleveland, Philadelphia, Kansas City, all those guys that are in the market for getting a wide receiver to complement their number 1 and get somebody else that's going to make that playmaking ability. So honestly, I mean, and what's so unique about this year's draft is you really think about it, since this is the top type of prospects we've seen in probably a decade, that this year's draft, when you draft in 1 to 20, is kind of like a top 10 pick for a lot of those teams at that 11 to 20 spot. So Saints are still going to get a great person, but if they're going to get Odell Beckham Jr., it's going to be through a trade.
Yes.
And then they're going to have
That's
to
the only
pay
way
a
to
king's
get
ransom.
him. I
That's
mean, he
it.
doesn't fall to 27.
And there's no way he falls.
No way.
And not just that, it depends on where he ultimately goes on how much it will cost you. But I believe that, again, the Saints are not far away from a Super Bowl, and if they feel that they need that one player to put them over the top, and if Beckham's the guy, that they will go after him as long as it won't cost them an entire draft to do so.
Now, one thing I'll say, Eric, to defend my pick, because I know you had a little problem with my number one pick last night.
Only because there are two
But
guards that are going to play this year. The only way he plays is injury.
If you remember last season, Breeze was short-arming some of the
Yes.
deep balls. Kenny Stills would have his man beat, and he'd have to stop and wait. And I think it's because of that inside rush. He didn't really have that trust to really step up into the pocket and unload like he had in the past. And if you get an Odell Beckham or you get a playmaking wide receiver, yet you don't have protection up the middle, then it kind of negates it. So to me, it's more imperative. I'd take Odell Beckham and figure out a way, but because he's just too good if you got a shot to pass up. But I think my scenario where you get that great offensive guard that can come in and rotate right away and learn on the job, and then you can get a Dante Moncrief, a 6'2", 220, 4'3", 5 guy.
Right.
I mean, in the second round, and he will be around there
he will.
when the Saints pick in the second. So
My only problem with the scenario of going with an offensive lineman, especially a guard in the first round, is Grubbs and Ed Evans are not going anywhere unless it's injury. And all of a sudden...
no, but they're getting older.
They are, which means that he would probably, by next year, I would agree with you. Grubbs probably will be in a situation where maybe they're not going to want to pay him. Maybe he's a cap casualty, and you move that first round pick in. But as I mentioned, that's 1 year that he's got to sit on the bench unless it's injury, and that's the only reason I would shy away from that.
But then again,
there are some that are saying that they may go with a center in the first round, which I think is far fetched.
But because I got a center in my mock draft, but
Right.
But I think I lost my train of thought now. But go ahead.
I was
It'll
going to
come
say,
back to me.
well, to talk about your center point, that's Marcus Martin, and then that was
Right.
Weston Richburg out of Colorado State. And so I know they said it. I was listening to the presser by Loomis earlier this week, and there was hints of maybe taking a center. But, to your point about the interior rush and such, I mean, the team didn't bring back De La Puente, and there wasn't a lot of open interest on De La Puente when he hit the market.
He's a backup in Chicago now.
Backup,
Exactly.
right.
So you think about it with that, it's just it makes sense if they look at a center, potentially a guard, but
The point I was trying to make that when you're drafting at 27, you already have a good team. You have a playoff. You made the second round of the playoffs. Okay, so you don't really need a guy to come in. I mean, if you can get an Odell Beckham, wonderful. But if you're going to stay at 27, you don't really need that guy that's going to come in and have to make a great impact right away. You're already a playoff team. So why not, if you got value, if there's a value pick there and Xavier Suolito is value at that spot. To me, at one board, he was ranked 27 overall prospect, so that's perfect. So, that's the only point I want to make.
504-866-3200. Let's go to Metairie and Hunter. Hunter, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Good evening. First of all,
Hey,
I'd
Hunter.
like you to know that I think that look you have tonight with the shirt and the tie is the classiest I've ever seen you look. Now,
Thank
that
you.
said,
Oh,
I'd
you
like
mean
to
that.
make a comment and get the panel's opinion. I think the show is going to last, by the way. I like it.
Thank you.
The comment is this. Drew Brees probably at the most, if he doesn't get hurt, and remember, he has a reconstructed shoulder. If he doesn't get hurt, we got 3 more seasons. We need to start seriously looking, the Saints that is, for a new number 1 quarterback. This draft is rich in quarterbacks among many other positions. What do you guys think about starting to seriously take a look at that position now? I'll hang up. Thank you.
Hunter, thank you for the phone call. Thank you for the compliment as well. Guys, I'm going to say this. I've stuck with this all along. They're a year away. And the reason why is that clock, that 4-year window that you have to hold on to a player. You're hoping Drew Brees got 3 to 4 years left. In my opinion, they're just 1 year too early on that. John, your thoughts?
Well, personally, I think, again, listening to the Mickey Loomis presser, he's still high on Drew Brees. I mean, obviously, the organization, you'd be kind of crazy not to think a lot about Drew Brees at this moment. But, that window is closing, so this is why the Saints are making kind of a huge push right now to get those players like the Jairus Byrd in here, to get those players because that window is closing for Drew Brees to win another Super Bowl. And for, him to play to like 40 or 42 like Brett Favre or something, I don't see that happening. But a lot of people don't talk about Ryan Griffin, and I believe Ryan Griffin's a great project. He's got his former Tulane head quarterback coach with him now, and just learning against Drew Brees. It's kind of a situation where I think we may have something there, but I don't believe in this draft we're going to address a quarterback at all.
Of course, that coach you're talking about is Mike New, former Voodoo head coach, and now on the staff of the New Orleans Saints. Mike?
Well, first of all, you're never going to see another Drew Brees. I mean, he's a once-in-a-lifetime quarterback with the way he's produced and his intelligence. I mean, we can go down a line, all his qualities. I mean, check off everything in the box, except he's not 6'5". That's the only, if you want to say, a drawback. But I think the reports of his impending demise are a little exaggerated. I mean, he's 2 years younger than Tom Brady. New England's not looking for Brady's replacement yet. They just traded Ryan Mallett, the guy who they thought was the heir apparent. Now they'll probably draft somebody or pick up a free agent for insurance in case Brady gets hurt. And he's had an ACL. He had, was it one or two blown out knees? He missed the whole season. Peyton Manning had neck surgery. I don't see Denver running out and getting a replacement to get rid, for Peyton Manning. Let's hold up on Drew Brees. He's got, to me, at least 3, maybe 4 prime years left. I mean, prime years left. If you can surround him with the weapons he's had up until now, it's the weapons that are getting old.
I agree with that.
It's the Colston's, his knees, his shoulder, the whole thing. It's wear and tear on him. The Saints had to let Lance Moore go. That's 2 big-time weapons right there. So let's get him some more weapons. Let's get the engine a tune-up and see what happens. I think Drew Brees' replacement may be a senior in high school right now, a freshman in college.
There you go. Also, I mean, again, even though the Saints, I don't believe, will be a ground-and-pound attack, you can protect him a little bit as he ages with a better offensive line and a better running game.
Right.
No doubt. And that will help give some longevity to his career. Now, they're never going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but they will be a team that ultimately they can protect him a little bit more with that running game. And also, I mean, again, that's why I think it's really incumbent upon them in this draft to get some playmakers. It's one of the things they've lacked on this team. Mike, you just mentioned it. Jimmy Graham getting double teamed. If all of a sudden, if you've got playmakers along, Jimmy Graham can't get double teamed.
Right.
He becomes a much better player.
And the number one cornerback or the number one defensive back doesn't devote his time and energy like like Graham, like they did in New England.
Right.
Oh, thanks.
504-866-3200. Your thoughts, John?
Talib and the other guy, Sherman.
Well, to your point, one of the things you're talking about, and a lot of times the ground and pound, and we saw it in the playoff games and against Philadelphia, Drew Brees didn't have to throw it 30, 40 times to beat the Eagles. I mean, you got that 1-2 punch, Ingram's finding his groove and such, so you can only hope that we keep having that type of success. That way it makes defenses having to respect that run game for the Saints. That way you're going to get that playmaker who's going to be able to stretch the field and get down the field, no problems, and make that play happen for the Saints, and makes Brees' job a lot easier.
There were rumors today, and again, it is the season of misinformation, that the Saints have spoken to the Miami Dolphins about maybe moving into that 19th pick. That tells me, first of all, they don't believe Odell Beckham will be there, but they maybe believe that Brandon Cooks will be there.
He'll be there at
Okay,
19.
and of course the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, are drafting at 22. They're looking for a playmaker like Cooks, and this may be a scenario where they're maybe looking to jump in front of Philadelphia for that pick. John, we'll take you first. Your thoughts? Anything to that? Do you think that the Saints are, even if they can't get an OBJ, that maybe they're looking to move up because they don't believe Marquise Lee or Brandon Cooks will be there in that first round at 27?
I mean, and that's what I'm saying is you got, and I was saying earlier, you got Cleveland, Philadelphia, Kansas City, all looking for those those players to complement their other receivers that they have. So to jump up in 19 to take somebody like Cooks could be very smart. But again, this is a very rich draft for a receiver. So if they don't get the guy that they want today, then the day two, they could get somebody like Dante Moncrief, or they could get Jarvis Landry,
Right.
who I know has appeared in a lot of mock drafts.
Like them both.
So I personally think that if they don't get that 19 spot, and again, you got to look at what are they going to have to give up to get,
Yes.
to get that spot. And if they can't get to 18, and I think, like I said, 18, Jets will probably take them for sure, or Jets going to take them before that. But, I just worry about what they're going to have to trade away.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on Brandon Cooks as I am on Beckham. Maybe it's my SEC bias showing, but I think the defenses in the SEC are a lot stronger than they are in the Pac-12. And Brandon Cooks has the measurables, but he's not that big. He's around 180, I believe. He's fast, but you can get a guy the same exact size as Brandon Cooks from Pittsburgh State. This guy John Brown, I think his name is. You could probably pick him up in the 5th round if you want to take a chance. Now, I'm not saying he's as good as Cooks or he's going to be as productive as Cooks, but he's got the same measurables. I'm not as high on Brandon Cooks as I am as Beckham. If you can get a Cooks at 27, you grab him.
Yes, I would agree.
But I wouldn't trade up to 19.
Yeah, neither would I. And look, I would agree with John, and I agree with you. I think that if you have a target guy, you got a guy that, look, we need him. He fills multiple roles for us, like an OBJ. Maybe you go up and get him. If it's a situation where it's a Cooks or a Lee, you may want to wait and see if they're there at 27. But there, as you guys have mentioned, there's enough depth in this draft that you can find those type of players in the 2nd and 3rd round if necessary, or again, multiple players where maybe you're getting that Sproles Bush clone in one of the middle rounds, and you're getting that burner wide receiver maybe in the 2nd round. I think that is a definite
The
possibility.
receiver's position is so deep, Eric, that I don't think you have to trade up to get somebody unless it's somebody special like Beckham.
And then you think about last year. Kenny Stills, 5th round.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Look,
Come on.
perfect example right there.
We're just waiting on Nick Toon, that's all.
Yes, and again, he's an enigma. He really is.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a make it or break it year for Nick Toon.
Absolutely.
He's going to have to figure it out, and because he's a guy that could be the heir apparent to Marcus Colston.
Absolutely.
Really kind of a Marcus Colston with speed, but he just hasn't been able to put it together on the field, and probably his last hurrah with the Saints, he's going to have to prove it, especially if they bring in a plethora of wide receivers to be able to compete, as I think they will.
I think they'll draft at least one and bring in free agents.
Yes, in the undrafted free agency.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree. We'll take our break. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE TV at 6 o'clock, with a rebroadcast each and every Friday night on WLAE TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette at 10 o'clock. Mike Vazan of 990 AM WGSO and John Hendricks of Who Dat Dish, our guest tonight. 504-866-3200 is the phone number. Stay tuned.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
We can beat this. The spill in the Gulf, it's a catastrophe.
But we will solve it.
This is not a Gulf Coast issue.
This is a national problem that requires a national solution.
But what can you do to help?
What do you have to offer? Your voice.
Speak up.
Add your name to the petition
Demanding restoration and protection
Of America's Gulf Coast.
Sign it.
Share it.
Be the one.
Be the one. RestoreTheGulf.com.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude. Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE TV. Mike Vazan of 990 AM WGSO and John Hendricks of Who Dat Dish are our guests tonight. You can also join the conversation at 504-866-3200. We touched on it briefly a little bit earlier, and it's a scenario that I really like because of the depth of this draft. The ability to trade back with some teams that may be targeting some players at 27. Saints are in a prime position at 27 right now for a team that maybe wants to get them up to get a quarterback. Maybe they're looking at a wide receiver they like. It could be any, but maybe the quarterback more than anything. And you might be able to move into that early part of the second round, pick up multiple picks, maybe in the third, fourth round as well. Mike, you brought it up first, so I'll ask you first your thoughts on the Saints moving back. I think that's the best scenario if you don't go up and get Odell Beckham.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I selected Xavier Suolito with my first pick was because I didn't allow myself a trade, and there was really nothing of value left. Maybe a D Ford. You might want to go with the defensive end from Auburn, but there's some question marks about him. So, trading back, just like you said, a team, maybe they passed on a quarterback, they want to jump back in and get one, and then you got an early second round pick. Man, it's going to be great value in the early second. All second round, there's going to be tremendous value. So if you can build picks in that round, second and third round, man, definitely do it.
John?
Personally, one of the things that I think about is Washington. Washington doesn't have a pick in the first round.
That's a great point.
So if you can trade down with Washington, move back about 6-7 spots, and then suddenly Washington finds somebody that they want to get in the first round, then that's a pretty good scenario. Indianapolis doesn't have a first-round pick as well. So those two teams potentially getting into the first round to trade, but I think Washington would be a great trade partner if the Saints don't wish to pursue that player that they want in that actual pick 27.
Yeah, because they're in the top half of the really the top 10 of the second round.
That'd be a good spot.
That'd be a nice spot for them. There's no doubt. There's been a lot of talk that Oakland might want to move back in the first round, depending on what's going to happen with Houston. Maybe they're looking to move back into the first round, for some value. I think the team that you got to watch is the San Francisco 49ers. They have 11 picks. And again, I think it was Mike Triplett that said this on my radio show today. There's not 11 picks that are going to make that San Francisco roster. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. What about if they stand pat? What if they stand pat at 27? What about maybe a 3 or 4 player bullpen of players you think that may be there? John?
So in my mock drafts, like I said earlier, I had taken Bradley Roby, the cornerback. That's the last one I had. I did have Marquise Lee, the wide receiver from USC, up there. I did also have Ryan Shazer from Ohio State because I do believe there is some value in getting an edge rusher. I mean, a 3-4 edge rusher is going to be great for Rob Ryan. I mean, we saw how well Junior Galette's played this year. And then again, there's kind of a little bit of uncertainty because you are getting Victor Butler back from the injury, and behind him is Paris Harrelson, who's coming off that torn chest muscle. And so there is a little bit of a case for getting another outside linebacker to help with that edge rusher. And then the last guy I had in the beginning was D Ford of Auburn.
Mike, a bullpen for you on 4 guys that you think maybe they're at 27 that work for the Saints.
Well, I like the linebacker from Ohio State,
Shazer.
D Ford. Calvin Benjamin, the wide receiver from Florida State, may fall. He'll be around there when the Saints are picking. And if just some random somebody falls to the Saints, somebody falls to them at that spot, somebody will fall. And it may be a pick that's, maybe Marquise Lee or somebody like that.
What's the best scenario for the Saints in this draft? What that happens in front of them? John, we've talked about maybe run on quarterback. When you look at the positions, what do you think would be the best scenario for this team that maybe that player that's going to be the player that they really like happens to just fall to them?
I mean, and you just said it. It's the run on quarterbacks and see who's going to be the first quarterback taken and by who, and see some action. And I think there's going to be something that's going to happen in this draft, whether it's a trade, somebody shock and awe. I've heard Dallas is looking to move up, potentially get one of their players that they're looking at on their board that they don't think is going to fall. So I think the triggering of those quarterbacks going, it's going to start kind of that chain reaction because you're going to have the teams that are kind of uncertain at their quarterback positions and start taking different people. But that would be the best case to kind of help delay a lot of the other players that the Saints have targeted, and that would be best case scenario.
Mike, what can you add?
I think the run on quarterbacks is a good point, but I don't think it'll happen because I think even though there's a deep quarterback pool, it's not really that great. I mean, there's no Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin, no Russell Wilson, Cam Newton. There's no surefire guy that you know you're going to pick him and you got a quarterback, you can count on for the next 8 to 10 years. Johnny Manziel is great for what he does, but you never know. He's kind of a wild card. This kid Bortles from Central Florida, I mean, I heard NFL scouts say, yeah, pick him top 10 and then redshirt him. Well, why are you going to pick a quarterback top 10 and then let him sit the bench, at least a year? It's because he's going to be going to a bad team anyway. So
not in today's NFL.
And
they got to play immediately. But go ahead.
Exactly, but I'm not 100% sold on Bortles. I mean, slow release, doesn't have great footwork, can't read defenses that well. So I just think that I'd like to see a run on quarterback. I think there's going to be a drop in quarterbacks. The teams are going to realize, man, we can hold back and pick up a decent quarterback second, third round.
Both you guys in your mock drafts have looked at that Bush Sproles clone. Let's say there's not an OBJ that's available for the Saints. Mike, I was interested when I read your mock draft last night. You've got one of those guys in the middle rounds that you've targeted.
Yeah, Jerick McKinnon from Georgia Southern, 5'9", about 210, 4.34, 4.37, 40. I mean, he played option quarterback most of his career, but he's versatile. He can go out and catch passes. He can return. He's a leader. He's got that quarterback mentality. And the transition from option quarterback to running back is a good one because as a running back, you already know what to read because you've played that quarterback. You pretty much know what the quarterback's seeing as far as what to read and where the cut's going to be, the lane's going to be. And sets up his blocks well, runs with his eyes, great vision. And he's got stockiness, like everybody thought small. They call him small. He wasn't small. He was just short.
Right. Stocky.
Stocky, and he had power in the 2 to 3 yard range between the tackles. So that's my guy. I think he'll be there in the 4th round, and so I picked him.
Sean?
Some of the other ones, I talked about earlier, Dante Moncrief and Paul Richardson in Colorado State. I mean, there's just other ones that out there. If you don't look at potentially, and I also had Jarvis Landry, but if you're talking about the Sproles role specifically, two of those guys that have that size, have that system that works for them, and it's just something that explosiveness and playmaking that would make them appeasing to pick for the Saints.
A couple guys that I'll throw out there. Dry Archer is one that a lot of people are talking about. DeAnthony Thomas is another one that could probably fill that role for the Saints. And those are guys that although a lot of draft nicks are saying that Archer's moving up the draft board. He may be a guy, but I've had draft experts on this show and on my radio show that have said, look, he's a smallish guy.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are small.
Right.
I mean, Archer and DeAnthony Thomas are 175, 180. And I mean, that's not Darren Sproles. That's I don't know if you remember Eric Metcalf.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's those types of players. Now, those guys would be good in space, but you're not going to get them to run between the tackles. And they're not as fast as Sproles.
Right. And
at least in Thomas's case.
Those guys, again, middle rounds, 5th round, or again, wouldn't shock me, undrafted free agency. The Saints,
I mean, if you can get them for that,
right.
Absolutely.
That's one way they go. The best defensive back on the board that may be there around 27 that fits the Saints' needs. Now, a lot of experts are saying they need the long, lean corner, not the short corner, the long, lean corner. Maybe 2 guys that are out there you think that may fit a defensive back.
I keep saying it's Bradley Roby because I think he's got the ability to become a solid number 2 corner for the Saints. And the thing is, a lot of them talk about with Roby, he's got a little bit of sluggishness to him, a lazy factor, but under the right coach and under the right system, he could be that solid number 2 corner. And who else better to do that than Rob Ryan and learn from Champ Bailey? I mean, all those guys around him could make Roby, I think, personally, the corner I would take.
Right. 504-866-3200 is the phone number if you want to join the conversation. Mike?
Yeah, I don't know of any, to be honest with you. Any long corner that'll drop to 27. If you're talking about a Richard Sherman type. Remember, he was a third-round pick.
Yes.
So every team missed on him for almost 3 complete rounds. So I don't know. I mean, I like Fuller out of Virginia Tech. He's around 6 feet. He's got good ball skills.
Yes.
He's got great break on the ball ability, catch-up ability. You know, you can get a guy like Philip Gaines out of Rice in the 2nd round. Fast, kind of tall, around 6 feet, 4'3"-ish, 4'4".
Which is what they're looking for.
Yeah. But those guys, those guys would be available when the Saints are picking in the 2nd. Not Fuller, but I think guys like Gaines,
Yes.
Jean-Baptiste, it's everybody's new favorite cornerback.
A lot of talk this week about offensive line, particularly about the center position, the possibility of going with a center. I'm one of those guys that believe that the Saints have always struck gold with the offensive linemen for the most part in the middle rounds, and I don't see any reason when you look at the depth and at really guard, tackle, and center that wouldn't be a position they'd go in the middle rounds. But some offensive linemen, John, that you think that the Saints may look at first, second, third round?
Well, and I agree with you on your pick of Su'a-Filo out of UCLA. I really do like him.
You like, yeah, I like
him. If he could last, and I don't think it would be the craziest pick, but you know, Marcus Martin has obviously been paired an actual dedicated center. He's one of the top prospects, along with Weston Richburg of Colorado State. But if you're looking at the later rounds, it might be a Travis Swanson from Arkansas potentially is somebody who can provide a little bit of beef. And you know, again, listen to that Mickey Loomis press conference. That if you surround, you know, a young center with Jari Evans and Ben Grubbs, that's going to do nothing but good things for a rookie center. Now, it does kind of make me a little bit uneasy to have a rookie center potentially hiking the ball to Drew,
Sure.
but with that veteran leadership in there, I think some of those guys, especially if they can get a dedicated center, would be, you know, what they're looking at in that avenue.
Mike, can you add anything to that?
First of all, I think they're going to sign Jonathan Goodwin.
I think he's
which
the
will
center.
make him,
Yep.
which will say, okay, we'll pick up a center, maybe 5th on back. And I love Wesley Johnson from Vanderbilt. He played tackle, but he projects as a center, and in the NFL, 2nd team All SEC. He's my 5th round choice in my mock draft. You know, smart. You need, you know, they say to be a center, you got to be smart. Scored a 36 on his ACT. I think that's about perfect. Carried almost a 4.0 at Vandy.
A little stronger than my ACT score.
Well, just a little. I think it doubled mine. But just a smart guy, able to get to the 2nd level because he's very athletic, played every position, a 5'2" lineman. I think he gave up 2 holding penalties. He's a 4-year starter. He had 2 holding penalties, 4 years, in the SEC.
Yes.
As
Well,
a
a guy
starting
like that
tackle.
can play multiple positions, he's got Saints written all over him.
Yeah.
Because that's what they
And
love.
you can get him in the 5th round.
And you know, some of the other people you talk about, but one of the other guys maybe take a look at is Trey Turner from
Oh,
LSU,
absolutely.
hometown boy. But
Right.
I mean, he has everything that the Saints would look for. in
He's a
guard, so
mauler. He's excellent choice, maybe 3rd round.
Everybody's
if you
saying
wanna,
around 3rd round
3rd,
now.
maybe early 4th, but excellent choice. Yeah, Trey Turner.
I would agree with that as well. Pass rusher. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, John. You're looking at Junior Gillespie in his last year of his deal. Obviously, you would like to be able to see him maybe continue to grow as a player. But there are a lot of Victor Butler coming off an injury now. A lot of draft experts that think that because of the run on offensive players in this draft, that a pass rusher, whether it's linebacker or defensive lineman, will fall to the Saints. Who do you think may be in that bullpen if there's going to be that D lineman, going to be that linebacker that may be there at 27?
That linebacker, like I said, it's going to be Ryan Shazer. That's who I continue to think, and I'm not as high on D Ford as I was when I did my mock draft, you know, earlier in April and such. But I look at Ryan Shazer as somebody who can come in right then and there. He can make plays. He's just so quick and quick to the ball. And I mean, he can tackle, which is obviously a great thing. We know Saints, I think they missed the least amount of tackles last year. So he's everything that Rob Ryan would love. But you know, to further your point on outside linebacker, other guys that we have on the roster like Rufus Johnson, some of those younger guys who haven't really played much could be also somebody that they have already in waiting potentially to have. And I think the defensive line's stout. So I don't think we should take anybody.
Right, I would agree. Mike?
Yeah, I wouldn't spend a number 1 pick on a defensive lineman, but I mean, I'll just echo what he said. D Ford, Ryan Shazer, and I'm not a Big Ten guy to begin with. The last cornerback we picked from the Big Ten didn't work out that great. He was okay, but Malcolm Jenkins switched into safety.
Yes.
But you know, I just don't think they need a defensive lineman, especially a pass rusher at 27.
Mike, I agree with both
Pat.
you guys. I mean, that's when I think you get value. You move back. There's going to be somebody else. Pass rushers are a premium. They're going to look.
Ely, I'm sorry, Missouri.
Right, from Missouri.
If he's there, maybe.
Right. But there are teams out there that are going to say, we would like to get into that round and get that pass rusher, and you may be able to move back and accumulate some picks, especially some guys at positions of need.
Yeah.
Again, wide receiver, offensive line, cornerback, to me, are the three positions they really need help at. And, you can live with a guy in the third, fourth, fifth round at the offensive line because you got some time for those guys to develop and grow. They don't have to jump in right away and be an impact player.
Yeah, I mean, as far as cornerback, I have the Saints picking Pierre Desor in the third round.
He's moved up a lot of boards.
He's one of those rangy guys, not elite speed, but really, really good ball skills and good reaction time. You hear scouts say fluid hips and all of this. All I know is he can make plays. Now, Lindenwood's a small school, so he's going to have to adjust to the speed in the NFL. But what I like about if you can get a guy like that in the third round is with a pass rush, such as the Saints have, with a Rob Ryan designed defense, you can maybe stick a guy like Desir in there in the corner, and now you have the safety play behind you with Jarvis Byrd that you haven't had since maybe Sammy Knight.
Yes.
I mean, and he may be better than Sammy Knight.
Or Darren Sharper.
Well, Darren Sharper for that one great season he had, but I'm talking about over the long haul. But so you can maybe get away with putting a Desir out there. Plus, you have Champ Bailey there, and if you're going to bring in a rookie, who better to learn from than a Champ Bailey?
Yes,
absolutely. And I mean, you think about it again. No matter who you bring on, you've got some of the best teachers in the game, and I mean the best coach with Rob Ryan.
Yeah.
That's going to lead and help, and he's known for putting people in their strengths. This is where you're going to go, and this is what you're good at. This is where we're going to put you. So for the defensive side, I mean it's almost a no-brainer. Whoever they bring in is going to end up making an impact. But
Guys, you've thrown out a couple names of some players that have been in your mock draft. I'll give you a chance now to maybe throw a couple names out there of some guys that are in your mock drafts who the audience should be looking at on the day 2 and day 3 of the draft. Mike?
Well, with the second pick in the 5th round, I had the Saints taking Larry Webster as a tight end from Bloomsburg. Remember that? You know that school?
Yes.
It's with Jari Evans, 6'5", 256. He ran a 4.5. His fastest time was 4.5. He's in the 4.5, 4.6 range. So you're talking about 100th of a second, whatever. Basketball player, had broke the school record for block shots. Now, to be a shot blocker, what do you need? You need to be able to jump. You need to have timing. You need to have long arms. And you need to have anticipation skills. And you have to be able to use your body. They tried him at defensive end. Didn't work out too great. Scouts are on him as a tight end, and he's on other teams' radar. He's not going to make it to be an undrafted free agent, especially since Jimmy Graham got picked a couple seasons ago, and look what he's turned into. So I say, why not? Give it a shot. He could turn into another Jimmy Graham. Imagine having 2 of them.
Right. Anybody else you could add before we move on to John?
Jason Rowling, the kid from Western Kentucky, safety, 6'3", about 190, good range, 4.5 speed. Good ball skills. Somebody in the 6th round would be a value pick, best player available, and gives Rob Ryan another safety. He loves safeties.
I got to tell you, I was really impressed with Mike's mock draft. I really didn't like the 1st round pick, but I want to tell you, every pick after that, I could see each one of those players being a player that could be in the Saints bullpen, a player that the Saints can pick. John, some players that Saints fans should be looking at that were part of your mock drafts, 2nd, 3rd day, that may be available.
And just start with wide receiver if they don't end up getting is Martavius Bryant out of Clemson, Paul Richardson, again from Colorado, Dante Moncrief, Jarvis Landry, just some of the wide receivers that are in that huge pool. And then just to appease LSU guys, just think about some other ones that fit their system, like the Trey Turner for sure. Just aside from the Saints, I think there's going to be a good bit of run on LSU players on that 2nd and 3rd day. I think Jeremy Hill is going to end up falling in like a New England or something along that lines, and Bettenberger will be taken, along with Turner and all those other guys. But those are the few that I have. That if they don't address one position tonight, they're going to get it obviously on the 2nd day easily with, if they don't take the corner tonight, they're going to take the wide receiver tomorrow. whatever the case may be.
First overall pick. Been so much speculation on who it's going to be. Jadeveon Clowney is the best player in this draft, in my opinion. Whether he goes to Houston at number 1 is still up in the air. We've heard all different type of scenarios out there. Houston's in the catbird seat. I read today where they've actually lessened their demands for the pick itself. They were asking an outrageous amount of picks for it, an RG3 type deal. The last place I'd like to see him go is Atlanta. I mean, again, Atlanta's got a good team. You add that to their team, all of a sudden, they're even more formidable. Atlanta, from what I understand, is chomping at the bit to try to go from 6 to 1. But now you got the scenario that's kind of brewing, and maybe it's smoke at this point. Jerry Jones saying that he is interested in Johnny Football.
Yeah,
Johnny
he's in
Manziel.
love with Johnny Football.
Loves him. And if you're Bob McNair, and you've got your Texas rival who is now beating the drum for Johnny Manziel, do you try to trade out and be able to beat him to the punch and grab a Manziel, or do you stay put and you take a Jadeveon Clowney? John, what's your thoughts?
I mean, why wouldn't you take Jadeveon Clowney? I mean, he's going to make an impact. And the thing is, if the Falcons were going to trade up if they want him that bad, they still have to worry about their offensive line, because that has a whole Swiss cheese in it right now.
Still porous.
But, if I'm the Texans, I mean, you're going to definitely entertain some of those chatters and stuff from the Cowboys, but Jerry Jones probably could overpay, no problem with that. But if I'm the Texans, I stick with Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, he's just been heralded as such a monstrosity and a unique player that just really helps their defense out. I mean, I would take him, have to.
Mike, who's the first overall pick?
Jadeveon Clowney, he's the best player in the NFL.
Does he go to Houston or does somebody?
Houston picks him. They're not going to accept the trade from Atlanta. Atlanta may at that point trade back a couple spots. I think two guys that I don't want Atlanta to get, or three, Clowney's one, but the other two, and I think they will get them, is Eric Ebron, the tight end from North Carolina. They're losing Tony Gonzalez, the all-world, one of the greatest ever.
That's a great point.
And I think Jeremy Hill. I think they got that. They love the big back. Michael Turner, Steven Jackson.
Yes.
I think I drafted before cell phones came out. That's how long he's been in the NFL. I think Jeremy Hill ends up with the Falcons. I hate to see it, but that's their kind of back.
And that's probably third-round pick for them. For them, yeah, no doubt. Jimmy Graham obviously got the non-exclusive rights tag on franchise tag on him. A grievance was filed by the NFLPA this week on his behalf. They would like to be able to see him to be paid as a wide receiver and not a tight end. The stats prove out that he played more of a wide receiver role than a tight end role for the Saints this season. My question is first, and Mike, I'll go with you first. Do you think that contract talks have stalled? Do you think that's the reason why the NFLPA went forward with the grievance? Or is this something they're doing on behalf of the Players Association to really kind of force the arbitrator's hand here so that those that come behind him, that there's never, because let's face it, the tight end position is evolving. It's no longer the blocker that it used to be. Those guys in a lot of the offenses now are becoming pass receivers, and maybe this is a way for them to kind of push the envelope and to once and for all say, you know what, much like you can't put a defensive lineman and in the same breath as a pass rusher, that there needs to be a designation for that hybrid tight end wide receiver. What are your thoughts? Contract stalls, or is this the NFLPA trying to make a point?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, I'm sure the Saints would love to have had a deal by now. I had Graham sign the franchise tag. He's not going to do that. But even if he signs it, they can still negotiate and get a deal. I just think the Saints have already accounted for that $7 million for the tight end, and if he gets the wide receiver allocation, that may blow up their salary cap. So, because then you're talking $5 million more dollars. I just think I think he's a tight end, because when you're a wide receiver, if you want to be classified your number one wide receiver, he's not that. He's not a Megatron. I mean, he's not that type of player. He is a guy that's because of his size and speed, his athletic ability, can create matchups because he's a tight end, not as a wide receiver.
What's your take on this, John?
Well, and it's funny, I was listening to Mickey Loomis on the ride in, and he actually was talking to Jim Henderson saying that they've known about this for a week, so it's nothing new, and I personally believe it's nothing new either. To be $5 million apart, I just think the long-term deal and it's just the fine parts of the contract or what, because if you lock up Graham long-term, then obviously that's going to free up some cap, because if you look at track history of Mickey Loomis, he's going to get some guaranteed money, but in the space they're in, they have plenty of money right now to get all their rookies on board. That's the space they're in. So to have to force the hand, and if we're going to have to pay an extra $5 million, then suddenly it becomes a little bit tighter, and now you're having to look at other players potentially to restructure and such. But this move's been coming for a while, and it shouldn't come as a shock to many people, but ultimately, I just think that long-term, they must be, a couple $1 million off. But he's not far off from being the highest-paid tight end, and rightfully he should be.
And yes, I would agree. And also, I'll say this: he's going to average $10 million a year at least. It's going to come down to what the guaranteed money is, and of course, that's still up in the air. The Saints may have budgeted him for $7 million, but he's again, it will be a cap-friendly deal this year, and I'm sure that it's going to get done. Guys, with about 2 minutes left. Any surprise that the option was not picked up on Mark Ingram? $5.2 million. The Saints decided not to. This could be a motivational factor, obviously, for Ingram going forward. To me, the die was cast on that. Once you let Darren Sproles go, who was making $4.2 million, once you asked Pierre Thomas to take a pay cut to under $3 million, he was supposed to make over $3 million against the cap. It shows you the Saints don't want to pay more than $3 million for a running back. Mike, your thoughts on Ingram? Why the option wasn't picked up, and what do you think is ultimately going to happen there? And we've got about 2 minutes left, so if you can do it in about a minute.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, he hasn't earned it up until now. He shows flashes, but he hasn't done it consistently. They gave the 5-year allocation to Cam Jordan, who's earned it.
Yes.
I mean, he's one of the best defensive ends in the league. So, and he made the top 100 players this year on the NFL Network. So, not surprised. This will probably be his last season with the Saints.
About 30 seconds.
Ingram, $5.2 million. You have Pierre Thomas, Travaris Cadet, and you have Kyrie Robinson. They don't even make up that combined.
Right.
So it's almost a no-brainer. I mean, you remember the last 1,000-yard rush for the Saints. It was Deuce McAllister. Haven't seen it ever since. It's a running back by committee, and there's no sense in paying somebody $5 million a year just to be a part-time running back. I mean, he fits the scheme well, but again, he hasn't lived up. He's kind of found himself a little bit this year, or last year, and then we hope it's even more this year, but again, we're just kind of a catch-22. We're rolling the dice a little.
Is this motivation for him this year?
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, it's a contract year for him. If he's ever going to do it, he's going to do it now.
It's motivation because, I mean, if you're not going to return as a Saint, you're auditioning for your next team. So you better look like you're going to get another contract with somebody.
Well, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming down tonight. The show really blows by, as always. And John Hendricks of Who Dat Dish, again, folks can check you out online at whodatdish.com. And if you want to get the FanSide app, you can get the app, and they'll get everything right to their smartphone or tablet. Mike, the
Fazan on Football.
Fazan on Football. Sounds good.
See you every Friday.
And I'll see you tomorrow as we do the radio show. And thanks so much.
Talk about the Falcons.
That's for sure. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night, 10 p.m. right here on WLEE TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. You can catch me on the radio weekdays, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on WGSO 990 a.m. And you can always listen live or download the podcast at ericasher.com. And if you missed any of the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports, you can check those out at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to our guests, John Hendricks and Mike Fazan. Also want to thank the WLEE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juno, and subbing for my producer, William Hill, tonight. I want to thank Anna Maria Beck for directing and producing the program. My name is Eric Asher. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you right back here next Thursday for Inside New Orleans Sports. Good evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.